Good morning. This is Jakarta EE 10, All You Need to Know. I know the title is a little bit longer in the schedule, but I couldn't fit it on a slide. So. My name is Ivar Grimstad. I'm the Jakarta EE Developer Advocate at Eclipse Foundation. And these are my social accounts if you want to follow me or get in touch with any questions regarding stuff I talk about here today or any other things. So, Jakarta EE 10 was out in September 22nd this year, so it's about a month old. And this is a very community-driven release. It's, we kind of look at it as a modernized version of Jakarta EE. It simplifies a lot of stuff, and it introduces some lightweight concepts. So these are the kind of slogans the marketing department came up with around Jakarta EE 10. But when we talk about Jakarta and Jakarta EE, what we talk about is specifications. And I just want to go through a little bit what specifications are and how we treat specifications at Eclipse Foundation. And the specifications in Jakarta EE are typically a document, a PDF or HTML file that describes the technology with some requirements that has to be fulfilled in order to implement the specification. There is also an API artifact, a jar file or something you can download from Maven Central. And there is a test suite or a test compatibility kit, or TCK for short, that tests whether an implementation fulfills the requirements of the specification. And as soon as we have at least one open source implementation that fulfills the TCK, that is a compatible implementation, then we can ratify a final specification. From there on, you can use any license you want for a compatible implementation. But there is nothing about a reference implementation as it used to be. It's about compatible implementations, and in plural, and we need at least one open source in order to ratify a final specification. And Jakarta EE 10 has a lot of specifications, and this is the Jakarta EE 10 platform. And as you can see, most of the boxes here are blue, and that are the specifications that were updated in Jakarta EE 10. And those with the .0 after the version number is a major update. And the .1 releases are minor updates. We're trying to do semantic versioning on the specification levels. So you can see about half of them are major updates, which potentially could mean break-in changes. And the others are minor updates, which will maintain backwards compatibility. And the gray ones weren't updated for this release. That doesn't mean they're not relevant or anything. It just means that they were good enough as they were, so we didn't update this for this release. And also there is one orange down in the corner, a CDI Lite, which is actually not a new specification. It's just a part of CDI, but we like to highlight it as a separate specification. And the reason for that I'll get to in a little while. If we take away some of these more enterprise-y flavored specifications, we're left with a subset of the platform, which is the Jakarta EE 10 Web Profile. And Web Profile has been with us since Java EE 6. And that is a true subset of the platform. And these are the specifications that you will typically use to create web or traditional web applications. And if we even filter out the web UI and traditional web specifications, we're left with a stack of specifications, which is the brand new Jakarta EE 10 Core Profile. And Core Profile is new in 10. It hasn't been with us before, so this is something we're introducing in Jakarta EE 10. And this stack of specifications are what you typically would need to create a microservice or a RESTful endpoint or a headless service or whatever you want to call it. But these are kind of what you need to produce some JSON output through a RESTful endpoint. What we also did with the Jakarta EE 10 is to raise the Java SE level from 8 to 11. And that means we compile the API sources with two Java SE 11 binaries. And the API language level is on Java SE 11. But the important thing is that we are ensuring that the TCK runs with 11 and 17. And that means that you as a Java developer or app developer can use Java 17. And most of the implementations are certifying on 17. Some of them are also on 11, so if you're stuck on 11, you have an option, but if you want to use 17, that's what you want. So Jakarta EE is on Java 17. And the key here is that we test it for 11 and 17. So I'll go through a couple of these specifications, not all of them, and then we'll dive into some demos and show some code here. So security. Security was a major update, and that's because they deprecated some stuff. And one major feature they added in this specification was support for OpenID Connect. And you could have used OpenID Connect with Jakarta EE applications before, but this is now in a standard way, so you can do it portable across application servers. So it's a standard for creating OpenID Connect configuration in your application. The other updates were updating the lower level specifications or SPIs. And these are specifications that are not necessarily user-facing. So you wouldn't necessarily use authorization and authentication directly. You would use it through the Jakarta Security API. But this is what the implementers would use to get it tied together in the platform. So what this release is all about is a foundation for future work, and as well as OpenID Connect. And OpenID Connect, the authentication mechanism that was added in 10 is this one, and you can see this very precisely named annotation here, which is OpenID authentication mechanism definition. And there you can define the properties for your OpenID Connect provider. And there are lots of more, but these are kind of the usual ones, the most basic ones. And you also have expression language supports, as you see here. Then let's look at Jakarta persistence. And this is a minor update. So they just added stuff that users wanted. And one of them are UID as a basic Java type. So you can now use UIDs directly in your entities without doing the mapping yourself. So in this case, I have a primary key with the UID. You can use it on any field in your entity. RESTful Web Services. This is also a minor release. They originally planned a 4.0 release, but they decided to stay on maintaining compatibility. And the reason for that is that Jakarta RESTful 4.0 wanted to embrace CDI fully, but they chose to stay with the stuff they had working in version 3. So they just added stuff that people wanted. And one of them is support for multi-part form data. And I've been pointing out that this should have been a post, but in this sample, because this is for uploading files. So now you can do it in a standard way. You could have done it in a standard way, in REST Easy or Jersey way before, but now we can do it in a standard way. The other cool thing that Jakarta REST introduced, and this is something that has been requested, and that is support for Java SE. And that means that you can run a Jakarta REST application without an application server, and just package it in a WAR and run it with java-jar. And I'll demo this, and what I'm doing here is I'm using a REST Easy implementation with Jakarta REST, and I'll produce a JSON binding or a JSON output with Jakarta REST. So let's look at this code. I have this application called BootyDuke here. And BootyDuke has, as you can see, I have the dependencies I'm packaging here. I'm using Jakarta REST, and I'm using the REST EE Core, and then REST EE Undertow for the web server, and also a JSON binding. So I have 3 dependencies, and the difference here from if you wanted to deploy it into an application server is that you wouldn't need to add these implementation dependencies. But since we're now running outside the application server, I have to provide the implementation. In this case, it's REST Easy. You can swap that with Jersey if you want it. And I'm using the Shade plugin to create a runnable jar here. You can use any packaging that fits your needs. The application itself It's just a Jakarta REST application, and it has a hello endpoint that responds to a GET request and just produces this howdy message. So if I want to have this to run in Java SE, I have to kind of bootstrap it. And I can do that in any main method. And in my case, I've chosen to have the main method here in the application class. You can do it outside, but it's convenient to have it here since this is kind of the configuration of the application. What I also have to do is do some basic configuration. And in this case, I'm just setting the root path and the port numbers. And you can configure everything here if you want other stuff. The next thing I need to do is just instantiate the application. And since I'm here using I'm in the application class that extends the Jakarta REST application, I can just instantiate myself here. And the last thing I have to do is to start the application. And in this case, I'm calling the static method start on SE Bootstrap, passing in the app and the config, and then just wait until somebody presses Control-C. So to run this one, let me see here. I'll just go a little bit up. So we have Bootadook here. I'll just Maven clean package to build it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I have to add the interrupted exception. So to the method signature. So I'll build it, and when it's built, you can see I have the Bootadook jar here, which I can run using Java just jar target Bootadook jar, and it starts fairly quickly up on the port I defined. And if I go here to the hello endpoint, it displays the message. So it's very fast, quick, and get up and running easily with the bootstrapping it on Java SE. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the core profile. And the core profile, the key about that is to target smaller runtimes. And these stacks, as I mentioned before, are typically microservices or RESTful endpoints. You would need some JSON processing and binding and some glue to keep it all together, and CDI Lite, which will come into why CDI Lite is important here. And currently, there are 3 compatible implementations. It's Open Liberty, Payara, and Wildfly. And these are the traditional application servers. So these are not really the runtimes that the core profile is targeting. What we are targeting with the core profile is runtimes like Helidon, Quarkus, or Micronaut, and etc., which has a smaller footprint and doesn't implement the web profile or the platform, but will only implement the core profile. And we're expecting Helidon maybe next year, Quarkus as well. It should be around the corner. Microprofile 6 will require core profile in order to be certified as Microprofile 6. So any Microprofile 6 application will also be compatible with Jakarta EE Core Profile. And the key here is CDI Lite. That is the reason why we created this profile. And CDI Lite is helping the applications to work in more restrictive environments. And more restricted environments, what we mean here is that we want to do the dynamic things we usually do at startup time with CDI and do it at build time. And why would we want to do that? Yeah, we want to do ahead of time compilation and compile with GraalVM compiler to create native images. And to do that, you have to resolve everything dynamic at build time and not runtime as CDI is doing today. And to do that, there is a new extensions API. So if you're using CDI extensions and want them to run in Core Profile, you need to port that from the old extensions to the new extensions. I'll show how it's done later on in this demo. And the other thing that is noteworthy here, and this is not a CDI Lite thing, but they changed the behavior of Beans XML. So if you're relying on Beans XML and empty being that everything is injectable, in Jakarta E10, you would have to define that it's all, because the default is annotated. Another thing is actually they fixed something that should have been fixed before, and that is to have CDI behave the same way in Java SE and in Java EE, or Jakarta EE, and that means that if there are no beans XML, CDI won't be activated. In previous version, it has been activated by default, but now you have to have a beans XML there to activate CDI. With that said, I'll go into some demo. And to this demo, I'm going to take a couple of steps back, because I realize that not everybody is on Jakarta EE 10 or are planning to go there just about the corner. So you're probably on older versions of Jakarta EE, or you're at something else. So what I'm going to do is take a Jakarta EE 8 application and move it all the way up to 10 and see what problems can I get there, and how can that migration path be done. And the key here between 8 and 9 is the Java X to Jakarta namespace. And some of you, or many of you, are probably Spring or Spring Boot developers and are thinking about Jakarta EE, why should I care about this namespace? Well, guess what? If you're using Spring, if you're using Jetty, if you're using Tomcat or Hibernate or any other library out there that has anything pulling in specifications from Jakarta EE, you are affected by this namespace change. It will affect you. You have to do something in your applications, because this namespace has a tendency to bleed through and end up in your applications in some way or the other. If you want to stay on the latest Tomcat or latest Jetty, they're on Jakarta namespace, so you have to change your application. To do this, we have some tools. And one of them is bytecode transformation. And there are two projects out there, the Eclipse Transformer and the Apache Tomcat migration tool. There are others as well, but these two are the ones I usually mention. And these will take the bytecode on the Java X namespace and transform it to Jakarta namespace, so you don't even have to touch the code. It will take the compiled jar or war and just fix it for you. And this is a good thing if you have libraries that you don't have the control of the source code anymore, or you have lost the source code, or if it's some third-party dependency that are dead or something. That if you have something on the Java X namespace, you can do the transformer on them, and they will run in the Jakarta namespace. Some of the runtimes also have the transformer built in, so you can drop a Java X namespace application into a Jakarta EE 10 application server, and it will do the transformation on the fly for you. IDEs also have support for this. IntelliJ has this migration from Java EE to Jakarta EE, which is actually Java X to Jakarta, the namespace, and it will take care of not doing the stuff that aren't affected, because there are still Java X named spaces in the JDK. So you cannot do a search replace everything. You have to be a little careful so you don't do the stuff that you don't want to change. If you do it manually, you typically have to follow these 6 steps. And I'll go through all of these steps using this Jakarta EE Duke demo application. You can go there and follow a tutorial and do the steps at your leisure at home afterwards if you want to. And this application is a Hello World application. Any architects? Or, yeah, a couple of you. Yeah? So you know Hello World should have a database. And you should have a tiered approach. So I have a message in the database. I have a Jakarta persistence layer that are retrieving the message from the database. And I have Jakarta Enterprise Beans, which is EJBs, you know, for business logic. You need that around Hello World. And I have a REST interface in Jakarta REST using JSON binding to produce JSON output. I also threw in a CDI extensions to have a nice log message to the sysadmin during the deployment. So this is kind of a well-architected, structured Hello World application, which I'll use for this demo. And it may look like any typical Jakarta EE application out there, because you usually have this kind of structure. So let's go through these steps. And step 1 and 2, I'll use the IDE to do this. And I'll open this complete Duke application. And first take a look at the code. And you can see here I'm using Java SE 8. And I have the Jakarta EE 8 dependency. And this is how the POM file looks like. So if you're in the Spring world and see a POM file that is a little bit spaces here, it could probably be like 20 lines. But if you're from Spring world, you'll probably be used to a much bigger POM XML. But this is kind of the beauty of Jakarta EE. You don't need it because you have this provided dependency that does everything for you. So the application itself is very similar to the one I showed you before. It's the application configuration. I have this hello endpoint that responds to HTTP GET, produces JSON. I inject this EJB. That is my business logic doing the fine greetings here. And this is how you identify EJB. It's the @stateless. That one annotation. So EJBs are not that complicated. This is what it is. And this business logic here is to find everything from the repository, which is injected here with CDI. Find the first one. If there are no first one, I'll hardcode it. And the find method in the repository is using the entity manager provided by Jakarta Persistence. And then I'm doing a criteria language to select everything from the database. And my entity is defined in this Duke's greeting class here. You can see it's an entity. It is in the greetings table and has 3 columns, ID, message, and email with getters. So this is all this application is about. I also have this @Duke's annotation, which is I've annotated the RESTful here, just to show this extension, which just scans for this annotation and prints a log message. So let's get this one over to Jakarta EE 9. And what I do then is simply to replace the version number here to 9.1. I could use 9.0, but that would be in Java SE 8, and I want to go higher, so let's use 9.1. Then the next thing I'm going to do is use the refactor and migrate packages and classes, Java EE to Jakarta EE, and I'll just choose the complete Duke and click Run and do refactor. And what you can see here is that all my imports were fixed to be Jakarta. And if I now reload the POM, this should compile fine as well. So you can see all my imports has been fixed for me. So that's how easy to do the namespace migration. The third step is if I have any XML schema namespaces. And in my application, I have one XML configuration file, and that is the persistence XML. You may have more, or you may have none. But if you have any XML files in your system, I'll just go here to the top, move it down a little. So here you can see I have the old jcp.org namespaces. So what I have to do here is to change this one to Jakarta EE. This is specified in the specification documents, so you don't have to remember exactly how they look like. But I need to change these. We also at Jakarta EE's Jakarta.ee/ schemas. You can find a list of all the schemas for Jakarta EE 10 as well. I just have to change the location and everything here. And this is typically search and replace if you want to do it a little bit quicker. But for demo, it's nice to do it manually. And also, a practice from Java EE has always been to name this file with a version of in the namespace. So there are absolutely no surprises there. So now I've changed everything. You can see it validates here that I have to use the correct version. So now I have the correct version of this XML file. The next step is properties. And in my application, you can see here I have these 2 properties to generate the test data in the database. So I'll just have to change these to from JavaX to Jakarta. So this is also very, very consistent throughout. It's always JavaX to Jakarta, or in one case, jcp.org to Jakarta. I don't have any more properties. So let's go ahead and deploy this application and see how it runs. So to help me here, I'll run it in Glassfish 6, which I have running. So I'll just add my application here, the complete Duke war. There you go. So I'll add it like this, and then I'll do a deploy. And look in the log file whether it goes well here. So it is deployed. So let's open it up in localhost 8081, 8082, I mean, complete Duke, hello. And it says, hello to Jakarta EE8. But we're on 9, aren't we? So this is kind of the dynamic things. In my case, it is a message. So in step 6, verify data and dynamic contents. In my case, it's a message that comes from the database. Let me see here. There we go. So in the database, I'm generating this data. I'm putting it in. So select from greeting, and as you can see, the message is hello from Jakarta EE8. So here I can change to 9.1 and commit it, and then it's correct. In my case, it's just a message. In your case, it could be concatenation of properties, of fully qualified class names, etc. So it could be anything that will break your application. I notice now that I actually skipped one step, and that is the bootstrapping files. So what I didn't do was to fix the bootstrapping files. And just to prevent this this database to be updated again when I run this application, because I'm doing a drop and create here, and this is good for test, but it's not good for production. So let's get rid of these so we don't write over the database again. And then the bootstrapping files. If you noticed in the log, it didn't say anything about the Duke's annotation. And that is the CDI extension. And in CDI, the extensions are defined that you define the fully qualified class path for the extension in a file that is called Java X Enterprise inject SPI extension. And there's no surprise here that the migration step here is to replace Java X with Jakarta, like this. So when I've done that, and I redeploy the application, you should see in the log here it says hi there, and which is the extension that was activated. And it still works here. So, but that was fun, but let's do something more fun. And the next thing I want to do is we want to test the limits a little bit. And EE9 is on Java SE 8, but 9.1 is on 11. But what about 17? Let's try that. And run a Jakarta EE9 application on Java 17. And what better feature to do that, to test that, than using a record? So I'll create a record. I'll call it Duke's record, like this. And this record should have a message, and it should have a local date, like this. And this is how you define a record in Java. You just define the fields, and it will generate getters and setters for you. And if you remember from my architecture diagram, what I'm doing here is I'm exposing my database entity through the REST layer. And usually you don't want to do that. You want to do some sort of a mapping. You have a data object or DDO or something. So what I'll do here, I'll use this record to produce this message. And then my business logic here has to also return the record. And rather than just doing, after I find the first one and return it, I'll map it to a record. So I'll take the greeting from the database, and I'll create a new Duke's greeting record. I'll take the message I get there, and I'll take local date.now. And also, if everything, the database fails, I have to just fix this. hard-coded thingy as well, and use localdet now. You see what I'm doing there? I'm getting it from the database, and I'm mapping it to a record and returning it through the API. Let's see if that works. Who thinks that works? A couple of you. Okay, good. You believe in me. So let's redeploy it and click refresh, and it's empty. And why is that? Okay, so a record are getting generated accessor methods, and these accessor methods have the same name as the parameters or the fields. So here it's data and message. And if I tell you that the previous version of JSON binding expects a Java bean, and the Java bean property is that it has to have a getter that is called get something. And we don't have that. It's called name and message. So what I could do is, of course, I could add this method there. I can do a converter or something. The dirty hack is actually to just call this one get message and call this one get date. If I now redeploy this one, it will display the message. So this is a very dirty hack to get records to work with JSON binding in Jakarta EE 9. But what we've done so far is to move it to 9, do a dirty hack to get it to work with 17. So what I'm going to do now is to move it forward to 10. And that's where it gets a little bit more exciting. So to do this migration from 9 to 10, it's even easier than going from 8 to 10. Because I only have to change this dependency version, reload the POM, and then I'll go and deploy it into Glassfish 7, which is on a implementation of Jakarta EE 10. So I'll just pick this one, deploy it there. It's up and running, and let's see if it happens here. Localhost 8080. Complete to hello, and it gives me a server error, and it says something about EJB and stuff. But if you kind of dig down this, you will find a very common weld error message that says something about CDI could not be activated, and this is the breaking change in CDI. You remember the beans XML. So what I have to do here is to add a beans XML file, and I'll just add this generated here for me. But also what I have to do is, you can see that the namespace is correct, but the version is version 3, and I want CDI 4. I want it to be version 4, and I don't care about the discovery mode because everything I have is annotated, so I'll just leave it empty. So I have an empty beans XML here. I'll redeploy it, and now it runs. It says 9 of 1, but yeah, you get the message. It's now on 10. So the next step is Jakarta EE Core Profile. So let's look at how that looks like. Core Profile is, as I said, a subset of the web profile. And I have this CoreDuke application here, which you can see I'm using the core API, not the Jakarta EE API, which is the platform, or the web API, which is the web profile. So this is a subset of the APIs available for the developer. The code here is slightly simpler because here I don't have the database available and I don't have the EJBs available. So I'm using CDI all the way, and I'm using a build-compatible extension rather than the portable extension. And the code, the application config is the same. The REST resource is the same. It produces JSON. It just calls the Duke service, which is here a request code bean. It's not a stateless session bean anymore. And it just hard codes Howdy Duke here. The difference is with the extension, and one difference is the bootstrapping. And you can see here, the bootstrapping file here is called Jakarta Enterprise Inject Build Compatible SPI Build Compatible Extension. Now, you don't have to remember this if you're creating this file manually. It's the same as the package name of the extension you're implementing. And that's the same case for the portable extensions, which I had in Jakarta E9. It's just a different interface I'm implementing. So I have to switch if I have the old extension here, I'm implementing extension. For this one, I have to implement build compatible extension. There are some other differences as well. This is just a kind of a method that you're implementing with some CDI servers and stuff. But in the new one, you have a newer programming model where you have annotations for the different lifecycle events in CDI. So this is done in the enhancement phase. There are discovery and a couple of 5 or 6 different phases there. So you just have to refer to the documentation and see where you hook in your extension. Apart from that, the code is very similar. And if I drop this one into Wildfly and do the deploy here, you can see it prints the hi there message from the extension. So this is something that is resolved at build time and just dropped in and displayed. And there should be no surprise that this one actually it behaves the same way as the other one. So are we on time? Okay. Sushi, anyone? There's a lot of fishes in the Jakarta world, and that is, we have the glassfish, we have payara, we have piranha, we have omnifish. So there are a lot of fishes in Jakarta implementations. So what I'm going to do now is to do a quick demo of Payara Cloud. And this is a demo that usually fails, so but I'll try it again. So, and another thing, the best way to get started with Jakarta EE is to use the starter for Jakarta EE. And it's located on startjakarta.ee. And I'll blow it up here, and you can see here it's startjakarta.ee. So if you navigate to this page, you can here choose which Jakarta EE version you want to generate for. Now I know that Payara Cloud only supports E8, so I'll use that. Then you give some Maven coordinates for your demo application and a version, and you get a archetype that generates for me. We're also working on a CLI, so you can do it directly from the command line. So let me just zoom back here, and then go in here, and let me see, where are my terminal? There we go. I'll paste the archetype generation here, and just generate the project for me. And of course, you can change the parameters and stuff. It creates a demo project for me. I'll just open this in Visual Studio. So we have it here. Let's blow it up. So what I get here is the POM file for Jakarta E8. And it generates a hello world for me that is very similar to the ones that we've already looked at. So it's a very simple project, but nevertheless. So I'll just Maven package. So I generate the WAR file. And then I'll open a web browser and point it to the Payara Cloud. And here I created a namespace in EU and US. So what I have to do is just to upload the application. So if the internet here works, I should be able to upload it. Let's refresh the page. There you go. So upload the application. Just go to, where did the demo, target, demo war. I'll deploy immediately. I'll call this one Sushi Duk. And I'll upload it. So you see, I generate the application, that's one click. I compile it, that's a click more. And then I upload it to Payara Cloud, that's 3 clicks. So from I start out turn it up and running is 3 clicks to get Jakarta EE running. So who said Jakarta EE was complicated? So demo, hello. Let me see, it just takes a little while to get running. You can do this with Jenkins as well. They have scripts to an API you can use, so that's very fun. Yeah, let's see. There we go. So it's hello. So you can see how simple it is to get started with Jakarta EE, and just choose the version in the Starter UI, generate the file, and up you go. All right, beyond 10, I'll briefly go through this. EE 10 is out, so 11 is the next one. We have started working. What we're discussing now is the release cadence. Should we tie it to the Java SE versions, or should we continue on the way that we have something feature ready and then release it? Should we have a fixed cadence? What we're also talking about is related to the cadence is, should we do something on maybe on 21 this time? Should we wait until Java SE 21 is out and then 6 months after that release a Jakarta 11? Should we do a 10 or 1 on 17 and then a 12 or 11 on 21? This is what we're discussing. What we're definitely sure about is that you will be able to run on the latest LTS when you are getting it released. So most likely that will be around Java SE 21, which is next year. Jakarta config is a new specification. It's standardized portable configuration. So you kind of configure your application, and whether you drop it in a Kubernetes pod or wherever, it just picked up the environments and configures the application for you. You can use CDI to do that with @config property or similar. They're working on the exact syntax. Jakarta MVC is not a part of the web profile or the platform, but it's standardized the action-based MVC pattern. It runs on EE 10. It's integrated into Glassfish and works fine with Wildfly as well. And maybe sometime in the future, server-side rendering is cool again, and then you can do it this way. And it's built on top of Jakarta REST with a couple of annotations there to make it make an MVC application out of it. NoSQL is standardized in NoSQL databases in the same way as JPA is standardizing relational databases. There's a new spec for standardizing gRPC within Jakarta EE. We're looking at Jakarta data, which is similar to Spring Data to standardize the repository pattern, so we can generate database stuff for you. Just define the interface and it will figure it out. Jakarta function is something I would like to see. Nobody has talked about this but me, but how about standardizing something around cloud functions? I don't know. If you think it's a good idea, go on a mailing list and tell us. To sum up, Jakarta EE 9 has been out for a while, and the big thing with 9 was the namespace change, and that is what's hitting the industry right now. And if you're using Spring 6 or Spring Boot 3, which is about to be released now, you will be affected by the namespace change. And some of the migration techniques that I showed here will probably be applicable to your project as well. Jakarta EE 10 has a lot of changes, a lot of new stuff, and it simplifies a great deal of things and introduces some new things. And of course, the big thing of Jakarta EE 10 is the core profile. Jakarta EE 10 is on SE 11, but you can run it on 17. After 17, it gets a little bit trickier because the removal of the security manager will affect some of the implementations. So we're working on how to handle that. If you want to know more about Jakarta EE, the jakarta.ee webpage is a place to start. And remember, you can also navigate directly to start jakarta.ee if you want a generator. Jakarta Blogs is a blog aggregator that you can get your blog there if you want. If you're writing a technical blog about Java or something, it doesn't have to be about Jakarta EE even, you can get listed there. Just file an issue and give us your RSS feed. I write some weekly updates on Jakarta EE on my blog. It's also on Jakarta blogs. And the demo code from this application is called Jakarta EE Duke. You can probably just Google Jakarta EE Duke and you'll find this GitHub repository for it. With that, thank you very much for listening.